I've stacked and folded my pages into my 3 signatures. And you'll see here that my image pages are not all folded so that the image is on the outside. Some are on the inside, like that. And then, for example, this one is on the outside. And I've got some pages in between, so it's not like my image pages are one right next to the other like that. So I staggered my pages, and in the center, when I mentioned earlier that I want to make my little mini envelope almost like a page, when I stitch my pages together, this will be my center, and I'm going to leave this section open like that, and I'm going to stitch it with the rest of the pages to my spine, and then after that's done, I'm going to tie my knot in my stitching and fold this down, attach it, and my little envelope will be part of the center, and it's going to hide where the strings attach. And the other thing I'm going to do before I stitch this is make sure everything is well centered top to bottom. For example, I have some sheets of paper that might be a little bit shorter. Yeah, like in this signature. Some of these pages might be, no, actually they're all the same height. I've had some journals where the height was different in some of my journals, so I would make sure that they were centered before I stitch them together. And the other thing is, you'll notice that some of the pages stick out more than the others, especially when you're advancing through the center of the journal. And that's because all my pages start off being the same size. Now you can trim some of that off if you like. I don't mind it. It gives it a sort of a rustic look. I don't mind the pages sticking out like that. And also, I don't want to trim off too much of my shaded border. But in this case, I could easily trim some of this off if I wanted to, and have it more in equal length. But I think I'll just leave it like that for this album, or for this journal. Except for this one here, because it's got the red border along the edge. This is the page that was lined like that. And I think because it's got the red border, it stands out more. So I'm going to trim that page down a bit. And I'm just going to remove the red border and leave the green around. And it'll fit in a bit better. There, so this is where I would center it top to bottom, and then it fits a lot better inside of my journal. Actually, come to think of it, maybe I will trim off these pages just a little bit. They do stick out quite a bit. So I'm going to remove, maybe I'll leave them folded and maybe just remove about 1/8 of an inch on each side. So the further towards the middle, the more they'll stick out. So that's not too bad. So I think I'll just do the middle one. The first page is, the first one isn't too bad at all. There, so my inside, my signatures will be ready to stitch. So let's get working on the cover. I'm going to use this cardstock for my cover, and this is, I think it's 100-pound thick cardstock, and I'm also going to cover it with paper, especially over the spine, inside and out, where I'm going to be stitching through to make sure that it's nice and solid. And I'm going to use this image for my cover. So now I want to figure out how wide to make these covers. So this is the same size as my pages, but there's a little bit of thickness, so they stick out a bit on the right side. So I'm going to add a bit more length or width. This measures about it's almost 4.5 inches. Actually, it's more like 4 3/8 of an inch. Yeah, I'm going to add 1/2 inch to the width and 1/2 inch to the height. And this is 6.5 inches, so I'm going to make it 7 inches high by 4 7/8 of an inch wide. So I'm just going to write that down. 4 7/8 wide by 7 inches high. Now I'm going to want to leave some space for the spine when I'm cutting my cardstock, and the spine would be about, I think, about 1.25 inches should do it for the thickness. Yeah, so I'm going to go 1.25 inches for the spine. So I'm going to calculate the size of the cardstock that I need. So I figured out my dimensions. So I need 4 7/8 inch wide times 2 for the front and back cover, and then 1.25 inches in addition for the spine. So I need a total of 11 inches, which is perfect because this is exactly 11 inches wide. Then I want it to be 7 inches high. So I'm going to trim this so it's 7 inches. And next I'm going to score. So I have 4 7/8 on each side, and then my spine in the middle. So 4, so there's 4, 5, 6, 7/8. Oops. I think think I'll use my ruler because it's really hard to score in thick paper with this stylus. So there's 4 7/8. Again, 4 7/8, and that gives me a 1 1/4 inch spine. So this will all fit in nicely. Actually, I can even trim a little bit off the sides if I want to. But no, I think this is a good width. So this is the size of my cover, and I'm going to cover it with some scrapbook paper. And this is the one that I'm going to use. So I'm going to trim this in 3 panels, the front, the spine, and the back. So that's my front. And I leave a little border all around, about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do the same thing for the spine. I've already got my height cut. And this is a 1/4 and a 1 1/4 inch spine, so I think an inch will do it. Yeah. And then finally the back. It should be the same size as my front cover. Yeah. And then I'm going to keep this piece for the inside here to reinforce where I'm going to be stitching through. So I'm just going to use my tacky glue, and I'm going to attach this to my front cover. I'm going to attach the back cover, the piece to the back cover, and the spine on the inside, and I'm also going to attach my front image, and then we'll work on stitching the signatures inside. I also added some scrapbook paper inside the covers, and that helps make the whole thing a lot sturdier too. And I had this little bit of lace, and when I stitch my signatures, I'm going to stitch this as well, like that. I think it kind of adds a nice little touch to the sides inside the spine. So I'm going to get my spine, my template for punching my holes ready. Now I know that this measures 7 inches. So I'm going to cut a piece of paper that measures 1 inch wide, because my spine is 1 1/4 inches, and I'm going to leave 1/8 of an inch on each side from where I'm stitching at least. So that means I'm going to cut a piece of paper that is 1 inch wide and 7 inches long. And I'm going to use this as a template for punching my holes. So first I want to find the center. So I'm just going to fold this in two like that. And then I fold it in two again. And I'm going to punch a hole right in the middle. Like that. So that's going to fit like that. Now on each side, I'm going to have my other signatures, and I'm going to see how much distance I need between the middle and the top. So if I center this on here, and let's say I want it about here, that would be good. So I'm going to punch a little hole there, and then I'm going to fold this back in two, and then punch through the hole again. So now I've got the 3 holes for my middle signature. That's going to be like that. So that's good. So next I want to punch the holes for my other signatures. Now I can either fold again, yeah, so my next hole would be here and here where the fold lines are. So I'm just going to fold that in two again, and I see where my first holes are here, so I'm going to punch a hole on that fold line, and then there's my center. And then there's the bottom. And I can always readjust these if I need to, but I think those look pretty good. And I'm also going to mark the top on here because when I'm punching holes through my pages, I want my pages to line up exactly. So these should be identical, but I still like just identifying what's the top and what's the bottom. Because when I do my pages, I'm going to trim off a little bit of the paper on the top and the bottom because my sheets are not quite as high as the journal. So next I take my template and I'm going to lay it on my journal, and I'm going to use some clips to hold this in place. Make sure it's well centered, and I've got a foam pad underneath, and I'm going to punch my holes through the spine. A little bit more to the right. Okay, that looks good. So now I can begin punching. Make sure you've got a nice sharp tool. There we go. It's a little bit difficult to see, but there's the holes for my 3 signatures. So because my pages are about half an inch shorter than the height of the covers, I'm folding this in 2, and I'm going to cut off about 1/4 of an inch from the top and bottom. And now this should fit. I'm just going to fold it down the middle like that. And I can use this clip to hold it in place like that. So now I'm going to punch the holes in my signature. And this first one is ready to attach inside my journal. I almost forgot, I want to add an eyelet to my spine. So I'm going to position my lace in place, and I'm going to punch a hole about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch from the top. And right in the middle of the spine. Like that. So it's right between, I think, 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. You don't want to go too low because you're going to have your signature stitching there, and you don't want it to be down too low. So I'm going to put this lace on here. So here's my little, I think I'll take a gold colored one. Let's see, this bronze one is nice. That, and then I'm gonna put my lace back on here. Make sure it's straight. That's good like that. So now I'm going to start stitching my first signature. So I've got this coated thread, and so it's nice and thick so it won't tear through the pages as much. I've also used thick embroidery floss in the past, and also there was this type of natural bamboo cord that I've used. It's a little bit thicker, but I've used that in journals too. And this I just got at my dollar store. But this roll here came from Amazon. I can't remember how much I paid for that. It was more expensive than the dollar store bamboo, that's for sure. Okay, so I'm going to remove my template, and I punch through the hole. I think what I'll do is I'm going to punch through each of my holes first, because this needle is larger than the stylus I was using to punch the original holes. So that's going to make the job a lot easier. And then I think I'll do the same thing in these holes. I'll just move the lace out of the way for now. Okay. So I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to put my needle through the center hole of the first signature. Make sure my lace is nice and straight. Then I'm going to go in through the bottom hole, and again I'm going to make sure that this is lined up. Once I put my first signature in, then I won't have to worry about the lace so much. So I'm working with my thread really loose at first. It doesn't matter. I'm going to tighten it later. Next, I'm going in through the center hole again. And now I can adjust my threads. So I need about this much to tie a knot. And I'll adjust the length of my ribbon later. So there's my first signature added. I'm going to punch the holes in my next signature, and this is the one that has that little mini envelope in. So I make sure that everything is nicely centered. Doily in there. Okay. So I'm going to take my template and put it right along the center. Like that. Now this little envelope will slide underneath, so I'm opening it, and here's the bottom section of the envelope. I'm going to slide that under there. It's not long enough for the clamps to hold on to it, but I still want it as part of my pages. So make sure it's centered top to bottom. And it's right in the crease of the journal, and I can start punching. I'll punch this hole first. So I'm going to do the same thing with this signature. I'm going to go through again with my needle, make sure the holes are big enough. I think I'm going to have to get myself a smaller needle that I can still thread my cord through. It makes it a lot easier for stitching. Okay, so I've got my little envelope in place, and I'm going to stitch this into the holes for the second signature, starting again with the middle. And then down the bottom. If your pages move around too much like they are for me right now, you can leave the clips on. It will make it easier, but I'm just going to feed a couple of pages in at a time here. going to go back in through the center. It can be a little awkward when your items are moving around like that. Okay, and then back up the top. And then I'm going to tie my string. Adjust the length. Oh, I see what happened here when I stitched back through the middle hole. I stitched right through the string, so I'm going to start this one over. And it's preventing me from pulling the string through. Okay, that's better. So I adjust my strings. Oops, I tore my envelope a little bit. I pulled too hard there. I'm going to fix that with maybe a little border trim or something. There's always a way to fix things. So I'm going to trim the ends. Now I can remove the tape backing from the bottom edge of the envelope. sure the strings are in there. And I can tape this. So there's my little envelope that's now part of the page. And I'm going to put a little strip just to hide the tear at the very base. I've got these little die cuts that are already cut. Maybe what I can do is just put this along the bottom like that. Yeah, that's kind of cute actually. So I'm going to do that. So then do the same thing. Punch your holes and attach it through the holes for the third signature. So my 3 signatures are now attached in my journal. So I'm going to start with the front cover inside. I want to put a pocket here, and I'm going to use this one. Now I can either put it this way, like that, or if I want a taller pocket, I can use this one, which is basically the same pocket, only it's the pocket that goes on the other angle. You can also have them one on each page like that. But I can take this one and position it like that, and then I would just have my tag in there. So I think I'm going to use this lower pocket. So I'm just going to put some two-sided tape on the back. Like that. And I'm going to start by attaching the lower edge. So I just remove a little bit of the backing, the tape backing. Fold it down like that, and then I position it like that. I'm going to leave the black edge of the cover showing. So I press down, remove the rest. And my pocket is way over to the left. Even if I was using one of these straight pockets like that, I don't want it to get too close to the spine, because when it closes, if you're putting some tags in there too, the thickness would make it awkward to close. So I want it over to the left. So that's why I designed these pockets so they're not the full width of the pages. Like that. So I'm going to finish attaching my pockets and embellishing the journal later. First I want to make my closure.